Welcome into another playoff edition of the show, a Wednesday hump day edition of DFO Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube, and as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. And Frank Saravalli, is it fair to say that the conference finals have maybe been a little boring? We've gotten 4 or 5 straight 3+ goal games, Frank. What's going on? There's no drama.
Yeah, the drama, I guess, was only in rounds 1 and 2. And it's funny because I think all 4 series in the conference final in both NBA and NHL are 3-1. So hasn't been a ton of intrigue, but I think where we could get a ton of intrigue would be a rematch, a grudge match of last year's Stanley Cup final with home ice being flipped. That would be something. So lots to look forward to. And plus, 28 other teams, 28 markets are in off-season mode, full-fledged off-season mode with the scouting combine. And our pal Stephen Ellis joining us shortly to talk prospects. I mean, this is a big next couple of weeks on that front.
Yeah, totally. We're going to talk draft in a little bit. We're going to do a little off-season preview as well. The Blue Jackets are up today. But first, Frank, let's start with the Stanley Cup playoffs as the Edmonton Oilers jumped up to a 3-1 series lead over the Dallas Stars. Another victory on home ice for Edmonton. And yeah, I mean, it was a 4-1 final. That was a 2-1 hockey game, though, until the 2 empty netters by the Edmonton Oilers. But another, what I would call, mature performance by the Oilers. They didn't have their best through 40 minutes. They really had to rely on Stuart Skinner early in that game, but I don't think Dallas had a grade A opportunity in the third period when they were down 2-1.
Yeah, I think the thing that I was thinking watching the game, and obviously you had a front row seat to it, but the Oilers were never really lost control. They were never really not in control of the game, which I think is another way to say mature effort, clean. It was rather, in the end, pretty decisive. And the Oilers have held a market advantage throughout this entire series, trailing for a grand total of 14 minutes and 2 seconds through 4 games that they've been in the driver's seat. And so maybe control is the applicable word because they've dictated just about every portion of the way that this series has unfolded and the style that it's going to unfold. So that part has been a huge feather in their cap.
And I would imagine also pretty demoralizing for Dallas to come out in the first period. They had 34 shot attempts at 5-on-5 in the first period, only 19 the rest of the game, 16 shots on goal in the first, 13 the rest of the game. But you come out of a first period where you play so well and you throw so much rubber at Stuart Skinner, and Edmonton gets 1 power play goal and they're up 1-0, and you're sitting in the room if you're Dallas, and it's like, okay, last game we had that second period that was so good and you still sat in the room down 2 goals. And then last night you come out, throw everything you can at them. You're sitting in the room going, we're down 1-0 in this game. Like, is our best just not good enough? And that's really what it feels like now after these 2 games in Edmonton. It feels like whatever Dallas is going to throw at the Oilers, they're just going to find a way to best it.
And look at this board here. The Oilers suddenly have the better penalty kill in the series. And I think you used the word dejected. I think you could use demoralized. I'm a big believer in body language and posture. And that team in the third period, as you know, the clock is ticking down, they looked a little bit beaten down, defeated. And I think that part of their thought process is, as you mentioned, sitting in the first intermission, or even if it was after the second period of game 3 in Edmonton, where they sit back and say, what do we have to do to beat these guys? Like, we've done almost everything that it is that we can, and yet we're not finding a way to get on the board here. That's a pretty tough way to then turn around for game 5 and try and conjure some belief to send the series back to Alberta. So I look at this situation, and if you were to tell me, and we just had this debate on the DFO Rundown that we just taped with Jason Greger, a special Wednesday edition, which team has the better chance to win game 5 to extend the series? To me, it's the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, and we'll talk about them in just a second. Again, Stuart Skinner, excellent. The power play, good. Corey Perry, the ageless wonder, finds the back of the net. And how about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? 4 straight multi-point efforts for the Nuge as he begins the Western Conference Final and is just on an absolute tear. I mean, you look at those numbers. 7 of his 13 assists in these playoffs have come already in these 4 Western Conference Final games. But they were riding a high last night in Edmonton, Frank. And then this morning, Oilers fans just get knocked down a peg. Really, really tough news. Chris Knobloch saying Zach Hyman needs surgery after this collision or hit from Mason Marchment. Zach Hyman's playoffs are over, and that is a massive, massive loss for the Oilers.
Yeah, really unfortunate all the way around. Wrist surgery for Zach Hyman and a tough spot. I mean, you saw it happen, and you saw him ready to stand there and congratulate his teammates after, and the hug that he shared. You kind of had a pretty good sense that they knew that this was bad news. And look, particularly going up against a Florida team, by the way, a Florida team that drafted him, and thinking about how you can create a path to victory with a ferocious Florida attack. How do you match that? Zach Hyman is the way you do it. The guy has hit everything that moves. He has 30 some more hits in this postseason than he did all regular season. He's the NHL's premier press player, the premier forecheck player. And he's been damn reliable in contributing offense as well. So he has a clutch element to his game. He's got a fight, a belief that I think even as that team, remember last year against the Panthers, down 3-0, he was one of those guys that was one of the most vocal believers, even down 3-0, that I think that helped spur on that team. So to not have that, very likely for the Stanley Cup final as well, if the Oilers advance, that's a huge blow. It just is. It's one less peg that you have to stand on to try and find a way to beat the Panthers.
And now Chris Knobloch has an interesting decision. I think a lot of people just do the very quick, okay, you lose a top 6 player, put Jeff Skinner in the lineup. But I don't think it's as simple as that for the Oilers. They have the option. You see Ekholm listed on their D pairings here. If Ekholm is available to return, they could put him with Bouchard, or they could run 11-7 because Bouchard and Kulak has been a really good pairing. You look at the forward group, Frank, the Oilers last night won that game despite only winning 38% of the faceoff. Gregor brought up this name. The Oilers could also really use an extra penalty killing body right now with both Connor Brown and Hyman out. Noah Philp was a damn good penalty killer in Bakersfield this year, and he's very good in the faceoff circle. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Jeff Skinner comes into the lineup.
I agree, and I think I would consider giving Philp a shot because he also has size as well, in addition to ability to win faceoffs. But I'd go with 11-7. I'd try and, if Ekholm is ready to go, try and ease him into the lineup. If you win, it's your last game before the Cup final. I don't know that you want to just toss him into game 1 of the final. Not that he wouldn't be able to handle it, but that's a big, it's a great luxury to have to say, hey, play game 5, and then your next game might not be for another week after the fact. If both teams win in game 5, we're looking at a June 4th start date for the Stanley Cup final. That I think you have to kind of game plan that part of it out. And Stetcher's been so good. You have this ability to ease Ekholm into the lineup. It doesn't need to be out of the chute a 22-minute night. It could be 14, get your bearings, get adjusted, feel good, don't be overtaxed and overworked, and continue to use Stecher in a very admirable utility role that he's played. Why go crazy trying to reinvent the wheel here? Use what you've got in front of you, particularly at a time when you'd otherwise have to take a forward out. With Connor Brown not being ready, just Hyman out, 11-7.
Yeah, I think it's a very easy sort of, like you pointed out, seamless kind of transition for them. Someone in the chat asked about Connor Brown again. He's already been ruled out for game 5, which goes tomorrow night. Oilers looking to punch their ticket to the Cup final. Tonight, the Panthers are looking to punch their ticket to a 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup final as this Eastern Conference final shifts back to Raleigh, North Carolina. Frank, can the Canes deliver one more win? Can they just push this series a little bit further? What do you need to see out of their game if they're going to do it?
Patience. They had a ton of that in game 4. And it may be too little too late. Maybe you watch this and say, Frank, like, come on, man, like, get real. But I kind of felt like watching game 4 that they had unlocked a little bit something. Was that their ability to find a different way to approach Florida? How much of that was also Florida perhaps kind of taking their foot off the gas? Florida had a pile of injuries. You see this morning, Sam Reinhart, Greer, and Nico Mikkola all on the ice for morning skate. I don't think all of them are going to go in game 5, but point being, did Florida more approach that like a December regular season game, thinking that Carolina might roll over and go 0-16 in conference finals? Or was that Carolina, and I lean toward this, Carolina finding something a little bit different, another layer to attack this, that maybe they've got something here? Like, I could for sure see us going back to Florida for game 6 and all of a sudden raising an interesting question for, by the way, a Florida team that did blow a 3-0 series lead last year. When you get to 3-3, it's blown. If it's a tie game in the 9th, it's a blown save. So that's how it works. That part, I'm not predicting it's going to happen again, but I think we've opened the door, at least a crack, to say, can you like squint and find a way that Carolina could win one at home? Yeah, I actually can.
Need their offense. Like, I know, again, our game recap board, you see 3-0, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, they scored 2 empty netters. They were still 0 for 3 with the power play. I need to see more from that Carolina offense. 28 shots on goal. Great, but we've done this song and dance with the Canes. Like, I don't care. You can put up 80 shots on net. If they're all from the perimeter, they hold no value to me. So I want to see that Carolina offense wake up. And if I'm Florida, I'm basically sitting there going, hey, we went 0 for 4 on the power play. Let's try to get going a little bit. If you can get Sam Reinhart back, great. But I think that Florida offense can put forth a much better effort than they did in game 3 as well. But it really is as simple as that analysis is. It's whoever's offense wakes up tonight is what I'm looking at. Let's shift to offseason mode very quickly, Frank. Talk the Columbus Blue Jackets are the team that's up next as we work our way through the entire league. Here you see their offseason sort of recap board. $40.4 million in cap space with 18 players on their roster. If Don Waddell wants to get crazy and start spending, he absolutely can. Will he?
Well, he's going to have to spend some of it because you got to get to the cap floor. So that part is a given. I do think that it's interesting that we've gotten to this point in time nearly in June, and given what's been talked about, rumbled, whatever you want to say, the rumblings, the tea leaves, why don't you have a deal done for Ivan Provorov? There's this thought process of he's interested in staying in Columbus. His brother is going to Ohio State and has committed that he wants to be part of this. Well, if that's the case, then get a deal done. Most free agents aren't beating down the door of the Blue Jackets, and you've got cap space, and Provorov is a relatively young free agent. Probably is going to age pretty well too. The guy's a horse. So that's one thing that stands out. I think the really fun part about the Columbus Jackets season is that they appeared to have a few guys step forward that show and have the ability to be difference makers. Marchenko, 74 points in 79 games. He was awesome. Kent Johnson took a massive step forward, 57 points in 68 games. You had a great season, north of a point per game for Sean Monahan, who was banged up, and obviously so much that this team carried through with them, the tragedy of Johnny Gaudreau and how difficult a year it was. But Voronkov, 47 points in 73 games. These guys had great years that I think there's some question of, hey, can they find a way to duplicate that? And for a team that didn't struggle to score at all, but really struggled. They were 8th in the league in goals for and 25th in the league in goals against. Can they find a way to keep the puck out of their net? That's another key question, but duplicate those results and take another step forward. We know that development in the NHL isn't linear, but the good news for Columbus is that you have guys that showed up and delivered when I don't know that we were necessarily sure quite what to make of them heading into last season.
Yeah. So you talk about preventing goals. What's the deal with Merzlikins then? He's 12th on your trade targets board. Is this a situation where Columbus is saying like, hey, he's not good enough. We need to get out of the money and find a goalie, maybe, find someone to play with Tarasov? Or is this a scenario where Columbus is going, whoa, there's not a lot of goalies on the market. Like, this is our best chance to get out of this money.
I think it's a little bit of all those things. I think his numbers haven't been good enough. I think there was some concern going back a couple years. Does he really want to be there? Does he need a change of scenery? And then you've got a thin goalie market that maybe someone out there is a believer in his form and says, hey, I think we can put him in front of a better team and get better results. Maybe. I think the other part too is, look, Merzlikins isn't young anymore. I was kind of blown away by going through the trade targets board exercise. Elvis Merzlikins and John Gibson are the same age. Does that make your
What?
brain explode?
Yeah,
It shows how long Gibson's been in the league, but B, that it happens fast when you're a guy like Merzlikins and you get in a little bit later.
Yeah. Again, 3 goalies on your trade targets board. Merzlikins sits in between Gibson and Thatcher Demko. All right, Frank, let's keep cruising along here and get to our big segment, talking a little draft with Stephen Ellis. It's the next wave, and it's brought to you by Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for the playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every check, every win is better enjoyed with your buds. So phone a bud, text a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. After all, the playoffs are the most wonderful time of the year. Make them count with Budweiser. Stephen Ellis is our Daily Faceoff prospect analyst, and he has an all-new draft rankings up at dailyfaceoff.com. You ranked the top 80. I want to focus on the guys who are in that first round area, and I hope this question makes sense, but like, at what point in your rankings of the first round guys does the term first round grade start to like maybe get a little fuzzy and you start to see a bit of a fall off?
I feel pretty confident in the top 26, and my 26th player there is Blake Fiddler, the son of Vin Fiddler. And I think with there, you look at who's right there afterwards. Ivan Ryabkin, a guy who many thought was a top 5 pick at the start of the year, just inconsistency. That is he going to play driver at the next level? There's questions there, and there's a couple of defensemen, a couple of wingers, a couple of guys where I'm not sure. There's a like Jack Nesbitt, I got him at number 31. I know some people think he could go top 15. Some think he's not, like he might not be anything other than just a big body and could fall to 50th. So I'd say it gets kind of wide open there. And that's kind of the theme about this draft, where I would like the first overall pick is not a lock by any means. Like Matthew Schaefer looks like the favorite, but there's a good argument for Michael Misa or James Hagens, and to a lesser extent even Porter Martone. Then you go from there. Like, could we see 3 goalies taken in the top 40? Could we see 6 goalies taken in the top 60? Who knows? Like, there's a ton of open-endedness in this draft, and that definitely extends to the later part of the first half or first round, where it's a bit mushy out there after 26.
Okay, so let's talk about Brady Martin. You've got him at 7. I haven't seen him in many other places inside the top 10. Why do you have him so high, and why is that? I don't know. Why is that a hot topic?
Brady Martin is a guy where I think if you watch enough of him, you understand the appeal. And I feel like when you look online, a lot of people in that 7th, 8th, 9th like draft range, they're looking at it, it's like, why would we want Brady Martin? There's guys who got way more points this year, like Jake O'Brien. But that's because Brady Martin is a guy you win with. And I said that a lot about Teddy Stiga last year. You might remember that. Teddy Stiga went out and got the game-winning goal at the World Juniors for USA. When it comes to what Brady Martin's able to do, he's one of the most aggressive players out there. He moves well. He's so smart. He scores. There's a little bit of Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand in him. And what do you know about those two guys right now? Those are guys that are currently key parts of a team that looks like they're going to go to the Stanley Cup final. Like you're looking for guys like that, the guys who will just play like their life depends on it every single shift. And that's what you get out of Brady Martin. So yeah, he might not be the most skilled guy out there, although I've seen him score some unbelievable goals, but we watched him at the under 18s. We watched him at the OHL this year. This is a player that just does not get enough respect, I think, from the average fan.
Okay, so you mentioned also we could see as many as 4 goalies in the top 40. Did I hear that right?
It really depends on kind of what you're looking at here, because there's just a kind of a mushy, again, to go back to use that word, it's it's not a super deep draft. And I think a team, if they're looking to go out there and swing big on a goalie, like this is a pretty solid goalie draft. That's the thing that was kind of missing from the last couple of years, like even last year. It's like we were kind of missing someone who could be that big game changer. But you look at Joshua Ravensburg, and he's a lock, I think, to go in the first round. I love Jack Ivankovic. Like there's a couple good goalies out of Europe. Like this is a good year for goalies. And I think a team that's just looking to add some stability there will be very happy in what they get.
So go ahead, Frank.
I was going to say, just to follow up on that quickly, is that not a deep draft and a good goalie draft? So therefore, if you're not really sure what position to take or who's next on your board, that you're like, well, I might as well take a swing on a goalie. Am I kind of parsing down what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm a big Jack Ivankovic fan. I got a feature on him on Friday where I think he's the next Dustin Wolf. And I watched a lot of Dustin Wolf in his draft year, and there's a lot of similarities in the way that the style of their play, the way they hold their glove up to make sure they could take the top part of the net away and make up for that smaller frame. And we saw him play some outstanding hockey at the U18s and the Hlinka Gretzky, and was even good in the game that Canada lost to Latvia at the World Juniors. But he's 5'11". You're banking on him becoming 6'4" like his dad, a former OHL goaltender and a Pittsburgh Penguins prospect. But if you're not looking to take a chance on a smaller goalie, you might look at Michael Prattle from Slovakia, who looked great in the USHL this year, and who else? Pyotr Andreanov from Russia, another guy, Alexei Medvedev out of London. Like there's a lot of good options here where Ravensburgen's probably the only one I feel confident in being a starter for sure, but you've got a lot of goalies here who've got a lot of runway and a lot of talent and size to work with too.
So you ranked your top 80, Steven. Is there anyone, though, who is maybe outside of that, who you were tempted to sneak in or who you've kind of had your eye on recently?
Yeah, it's a guy that I didn't really know a whole lot about until the last couple of weeks, and it's Ryan Miller, not the goaltender, but it's a winger out of the Portland Winterhawks. This guy, I love guys like Brady Martin, guys that will just fight for their life out there. And you look at these numbers, nothing too crazy there, but Miller was a big part of the Portland Winterhawks this year, just so tenacious, so quick. Like that's a guy that you really want to go out there and win with, because he actually took a ton of faceoffs this year for a guy who's technically more of a winger. He's not that big, but he plays heavy. Like he goes out there trying to hit. He's aggressive. So there's a lot of energy there. Like that's someone who you think of as maybe tops out as a third line player, maybe a fourth line guy, but you still want there because he knows how to chase after guys. He's got that drive to win every single shift. And I think you put that together. Those are guys you're always trying to find in the third or fourth round, someone who you might be able to win on as a depth guy that plays that role really, really well. And it's the type of guy that teams will trade for at the trade deadline.
So last one, and not draft related, but Utah Mammoth just announced that they signed Dmitry Shimashev to his entry-level contract, 6th overall 2023, massive guy coming off a KHL title with Locomotive. What are Utah Mammoth getting, and is he NHL ready?
I think he's definitely NHL ready. And what you're getting there in him is a guy that's got that big frame. He might not go out there and be the most aggressive player, but he blocks shots. He moves well. He's really smart. Like I talk about, you really want guys who've just got good hockey IQ, guys that understand how to read plays really well. And that's something we continue to see that he continues to improve on, where he's always in the right spot at the right time to not only get the puck where it needs to be, but to defend in his own zone without being caught out of position. Like this is a guy who was playing in the KHL at 17 and 18 years old. Like that's a brutal league for a young player to play in. And he did not look out of sorts there. Like he played in the power play, played on the penalty kill. He did everything. So yeah, I think he's going to be probably a top 4 defenseman pretty immediately in the NHL.
Steven Ellis, our daily faceoff prospect analyst, his top 80 is out now. I saw Pat put the link in the YouTube chat if people want to check it out. Steven, thanks for popping on.
Thanks so much.
Daily Faceoff inbox time. Hashtag Ask DFO. I see our friend Joe put one in here, and we didn't touch on him yesterday, even though he's very high on your board. We spent a lot of time talking JJ Peterka, not a lot of time talking Marco Rossi. Frank, what's behind the idea that the Wild would move him? And I guess Joe wants to know the chances they actually do get this trade done or get a trade done.
I think it's pretty high. I think at this point, it's more likely than not that Marco Rossi ends up moving on. Now, that said, you need something to materialize. But look, this is a guy who is very talented, 60 points, 24 goals, but is an undersized center. And you saw as the playoffs went on, he was a bit diminished in role. He got knocked down to fourth line center. And after a 60-point season, the big question for the Wild is, what are you going to pay this guy? And are you going to pay this guy? And they've been willing in the past to draw a line on players that are really talented that they just don't think fit exactly what they're trying to do. And not to say that there's not room for a Marco Rossi on any team, but the Wild have a very specific style that they want to build toward. Big, heavy, difficult to play against. And I think their coach is in lockstep with that too. So if that's what you're looking for and Rossi isn't it, and you've got to then devote significant cap space to him, is it better to just cut bait, get something significant in return if you can, and then try and plug that into what you're looking for? So I think that's probably the path that they end up going down. And I think that's why he's pretty prominently featured on our latest trade targets board.
Yeah, I like the conversation you and Gregor had today about Peterka, Rossi, maybe just whoop, each team gets a different look. Each team, moves on from a young player while also not making themselves entirely worse and just taking futures. But let's move along to our daily bets for the day, brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you. Game props, player props, totals, and money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, and of course, the Stanley Cup champion. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Frank, if you remember yesterday, I did Oilers money line, Panthers money line. So I'm sweating that one out tonight and doubling down a little bit. Same game parlay, Panthers money line, Barkov point for Hagee point. If their power play gets 4 cracks, I think they cash in, and I like Barkov and Verhaeghe to be involved. So plus 240 on that bad boy from Bet365.
Yeah, I'm going Canes win tonight. I'm riding with the dogs. So there you go.
Home dogs are a smart strategy in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's wrap up the show, Frank. A little bit of garbage time. We all remember the Jared Bednar lookalike. Well, how about a Chris Knoblauch lookalike in Edmonton?
This guy did Knoblauch dirty. First off, this guy has an absolute beak in the stands. So that's a tough look for Chris Knoblauch. And his hair is not as good as Chris Knoblauch's. Look, why? So you're going to the game, you're spending a significant chunk of money on these tickets to see the Edmonton Oilers. Are you doing it just for to get on camera? Is that your play? Hey, I want to be why wear the suit? Unless you're coming straight from a hardcore business meeting on a game night in Edmonton, I don't know, maybe, but can we it's kind of nonsensical. It all started a few years ago. I'm blanking on the guy's name, the coach in Ottawa with the furry mustache.
Oh my God, Frank, we can't be missing this.
McLean. No.
There you go. Yeah. Paul McLean.
Paul McLean. Yeah. That was funny. That was legitimately awesome. This one, it's just really, dude? You're not even that close. But anyway, not here to be a fun sucker. But if we're gonna do shots of people behind the bench, I'm way more in line with what's been happening in Dallas in recent games than what's going on in Edmonton.
I'll give a little context to it because I did see the news story on him. So his name's Matt Ziprick, and he's a pastor in Sherwood Park, Frank. He's a man of God, and he was invited to the game by the team last night, he said. So the team did a little thing in the arena where they put him up, and it was actually funny. From my seat, I could see across at the bench, and they did a thing in the stands where he was holding up a sign saying, "I'm not Chris Knoblauch." And I caught Knoblauch looking up at the screen and kind of doing a double take, being like, "What?" And then he just focused right back in. But he's a pastor. He was invited by the team. But I do agree. Sometimes this stuff, people who showing up in the full suit is a little weird. But
I take it all back. He's a man of the cloth. I take it all back.
There you go. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. We're going to continue the trade talk, the offseason talk tomorrow, and we may have a team that has clinched their berth in the Stanley Cup final. Thanks for watching today, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.